Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be talking about Saturn. I'm not quite yet sure if this is going to be specific to Saturn placement yet, but this is just about Saturn in general, just a download that I received about Saturn while I was at church actually, which is of course Saturn mania. So I wanted to share it with you guys because I think that it's really important information about like life and death and the body very specifically. So Saturn is the planetary sphere or the planetary consciousness of time, mastery, crystallization of the body, as well as boundaries and systems. So I would honestly say that there's this like Saturn gate, and Saturn decides who gets to walk through the gate and who doesn't. There's a lot of information that is involved with Saturn. Okay, now let's go back to the beginning of time. So in the beginning, my words or what's coming out of my mouth didn't have any meaning. Spiritual texts, the occult, the esoteric, whatever spirituality, all of that simply was. There wasn't a formal understanding of that. Without Saturn, we wouldn't have a formal understanding of, quite frankly, anything, okay? Saturn is the box. And when you put things in boxes, you understand them a little bit better. However, some people also believe that when you put things in boxes, you understand them a little less or a lot less. And you come to this point where you try to categorize everything to make sense of it instead of just allowing it to be and allowing it to flow. Saturn is what a lot of astrologers like to call the most dense of the planets. And in our astrological birth chart, or, just in general, but yeah, in our astrological birth chart, Saturn is known as the planet which we need to, it's our teacher. It is literally our teacher. Now, a lot of spiritualists say that Earth is a school, that Earth is the toughest school in the galaxy. And so if you're here, you decided to be here, you decided to learn. And so while I was at church, the pastor or the reverend, I'm not even sure, he was talking about everlasting life after death. And this is a Christian church. This was an Episcopal church, to be very specific. And he explained that, as most Christian churches do, that you need to give your life to Christ in order to live an everlasting life. It's like we don't know, this is what he said, not verbatim, but yeah, that we may not know what happens after death, after life, but we do know that we want to be in everlasting life with him. That's a little bit of what he said. And when he was talking about this, he used his hands to show, everlasting life. You can't see what I'm doing. Like, okay, let's just say he went like this. It was obviously larger than this, but I only have so much room in the boundary Saturn of this phone. So, okay. And when he did that, something clicked, literally. And I was just like, holy shit. Literally, there is no life and death. That is the way that it is viewed in the material plane, right? But there is no actual life and death. The spirit continues. And, if you're on my channel, I'm sure that you already know this. And I already knew that too. But I don't know, it was something about the visualization that he did that really kind of awoke something within me. And then that's when the download came through. And so even though I have always known that there's life after death and that this is not the only life, we shed our skin. I've experienced other worlds and other realities. I'm not new to this shit. However, it was something about realizing that when we're in our bodies, this is a controlled substance, right? Our spirit is a controlled substance within our bodies. And so when we shed our bodies, our spirit is still here. Is still around. There is no beginning and no end. That's specifically what I wanted to say. There is no beginning and there is no end to our spirit. Okay. So what do I mean by our spirit being a controlled substance? Okay, so I wrote some notes. Okay, so the body, through its life lessons, refines the spirit. Okay, so think about it. Without these bodies, our spirits are very chaotic. They're everywhere, nowhere, etc. Okay. It is through these bodies that we get to control the spirit. This is why, and there's a lot of Eastern practices, to be quite honest. I can't remember the specific teachings off the top of my head. However, I've seen like a couple of excerpts here and there throughout my journey so far, where they talk about how all we're doing is preparing for death. All we are really doing in these bodies are refining our spirits so that when we leave these bodies permanently, because we do leave these bodies, when we go to sleep or through meditations, different invocations and whatnot. But when we leave them permanently, we have mastery over our spirit. Okay. And like I said, the body is Saturn. Okay. Because the spirit is limited in the body. We all know this. Okay. And another thing too with Saturn is, like I said, the crystallization of the body. The body has had to have been made perfectly for the spirit to be encapsulated within it. I believe that some spirits reject certain bodies. Yes, it happens. Okay. And another thing too that I was getting was that these bodies are very expensive. But before I get into the price of these bodies, I'm going to start with Okay, yeah. So we're living to die. Life is nothing more than a prelude to the wonders of consciousness itself. So we are here to refine our spiritual talents and skills, our psychic talents and abilities, so that when we are out of these bodies, we're not so, we're not being thrown every which way, if that makes sense. Okay, so what do I mean by these bodies being very expensive? So I don't know if you guys ever heard this, but people have said like that, there's a price. With everything, there's a price, okay? And some people say that these bodies are prisons. That's a very kind of a nihilistic way of looking at being a human. But regardless of the view, not all spiritual beings get to inhabit physical human bodies. And that's why body hijacking is such a huge thing. It's a huge thing within the spiritual framework of reality, to not only keep your mind, but keep your body. And one of the ways that people are frightened to strengthen their psychic abilities, strengthen their astral abilities, is being told that when we astral project, that our bodies might be hijacked. And don't get me wrong, I'm not completely saying that that's not true, but I'm also saying, again, these bodies are perfected. These bodies are perfected to specifically house your spirit. So 9 times out of 10, if another spirit is going to enter your body is going to reject that spirit. That spirit was not made for that body. And these bodies took a long time. Saturn took a long time to be made in its way. I mean, when we talk about the intricacies within the inner workings of the body, we want to go to the sixth house really quick with Virgo, and we want to talk about the veins and the body's ability to heal itself. And although a lot of people say that the body's ability to heal itself is through the mind, that sixth house, 12th house connection, right? Even after death, the body knows to decompose itself. The body is intelligent. The inner workings that make the body are perfectly created, perfectly sketched, perfectly stitched in such an intelligent way that it doesn't need the body. That's kind of, I guess, where that whole sentiment of zombies, I guess, would come into play. Okay. However, the ability to inhabit a body, your spirit waited a long time. Our spirits waited a long time. And I want to go back to not all spiritual beings get to inhabit physical bodies and talk about body hijacking really quick, because I kind of went off on a tangent, but not really, because it's still all a part of the same thing. When we're talking about like body hijacking and like entities and stuff like that don't have physical bodies, but kind of like they're in the shadows, and they want to hijack, because there's so many things that you can do in a physical body. So I know that you guys probably have heard this too. A lot of people say, like, you know, in a physical body, you can eat, you can have sex, you experience emotion in such a way that you're not able to as a spirit and whatnot. And so a lot of people appreciate the human experience because it is so lush, it is so pleasurable. Okay. And with it being so lush and it being so pleasurable, not everybody gets to experience that. There are people waiting on bodies. There are entities, there are spirits waiting, not only to hijack bodies, but also to inhabit their body, their specific body that they're supposed to, you know, inhabit. So if you think about all of that time, there is a price that we paid, a very expensive price. I don't know what the exchange was, but I will say this: to exchange the everlasting, or I don't want to say everlasting, to exchange the chaoticness of the spirit realm to come into a more condensed version, to refine your spirit, that's definitely a price in and of itself. I don't know if that's the ultimate price. And again, in Christianity, when we talk about the body and the son and the ultimate price that the Heavenly Father made, I mean, come on, these spiritual tests, we already know. I don't have to be blatant about it. The ultimate price I paid the ultimate price to be up in this body. Okay? I did. And so the ability to refine the everlasting aspect of us, the spirit, because my spirit will continue after this body is long gone, is a gift. It is the ultimate price, like I said, okay? So I want to talk about vampires really quickly. This year, I looked up my sidereal placements, my solar return sidereal placements, and I have a Kritika moon and a Pushya ascendant. When I saw that Kritika moon, everything made sense about the way that this year kind of has been going for me. And one of the really big things that have been going for, one of the biggest themes is mythical creatures, but specifically vampires. So as we know, vampires, at least in the media, but just in general, right? Very general framework. What is a vampire, right? So a vampire is a creature of the night, right? And a vampire is immortal. Or is it mortal? No, yeah. A vampire is immortal and feeds off of human blood in order to live. They are dead, and they still inhabit their bodies, and they have supernatural abilities and whatnot. Okay, so one of the things about vampires and being this immortality obsession, right? They stay within their bodies, right? They're like, oh, I'm gonna use this body type of energy. And they have such a long time to refine their spiritual bodies because they're not leaving their bodies. They want to stay in their bodies, okay? Another thing too that people say about vampires, or something that's known about vampires, is they're very they're a slave to their desires. They're a slave to, sex, and very like root chakra materialism. They just want to stay in this realm because they're obsessed with it. And if you think about the entities within this realm that have their grip on this realm, they don't want to leave this realm. They want to stay. And so what they do is they body hijack, and they move across different bodies and whatnot. And you might be like, okay, but you just said like that there's a specific the body specifically made for that spirit and whatnot. But if I go more into that, we're getting into very esoteric teachings that I can talk about in another video. And that's mostly coming from blood pacts and things of that nature, which still ties into vampirism. But that's not what this specific video is about. But anyway, yeah, so body hijacking and just not wanting to leave this plane, to be quite honest. Also, this hijacking of spiritual knowledge, right? Like I said, when we're at church and we're told to do this, and this will give everlasting life and whatnot, completely disregarding the ability, the purpose of being in these bodies, again, to refine the spiritual body, right? Which tells me, if I'm going to be completely honest, that a lot of people who have human bodies, because another thing too is not everybody's a human, but the people who come here specifically and have human bodies, I'm getting told that there's a specific spiritual purpose to that. Because I don't want to say that not everybody's meant to spiritually refine themselves. I don't really think that. But there's definitely like, it's kind of like, I mean, think about like school. You have like your certain period of school. You can't go back into high school after you turn 18, I think. Like, you're not allowed back inside. You have to get your GED, But you can always go back to college literally at any point, or go back to technical school. All of these, everything that is out here in this material world has, of course, a spiritual meaning, even if it's, even though it's twisted and distorted. So I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say. Remember, our spirits steer our bodies, and our spirit exists everywhere. But like I said, we paid the ultimate price. And so our spirit has been condensed into these forms so that we may be able to refine our abilities. So what does this mean? So just like I talked about a little bit previously, astral projection, lucid dreaming, time traveling, entering others' minds, shape-shifting, traveling instantaneously. There's so much. There's so much. But the main point that I'm trying to make is that we are in these bodies because we can control our spiritual abilities. Okay? If I know that I can astral project from the hours of, 9 to 9. If I choose that, if I'm like, okay, that's the perfect time for me to astral project, okay? And I set up these very specific practices so that when I become, this is actually what I wanted to say. Wherever your ability to astral project right now, where it is, you're basically an infant. I'm going to use myself as an example. Okay. I'm an infant. I have astral projected. I do lucid dream, but I'm an infant. You know why? Because I was doing those without conscious awareness. They were just happening. Okay. Remember, consciousness is huge, for lack of a better word. Okay. So if I'm doing these things and they're just happening, it's because it's a natural talent, it's a natural gift. And we all have the ability to astral project, of course. Okay. But I'm saying, because we come here to refine them, we come here to perfect it, so that when I leave, I'm not just astral projecting out of my ass. Because honestly, if I'm going to be completely honest, that sounds terrifying to me. And I'm not trying to scare nobody. I'm just talking about myself, because I've been in situations where I just kind of astral project, or I just kind of whatever. And it's not something that I consciously told myself to do, or I consciously was prepared to do. And so, like I said, you're to me, the astral realm, if you're not conscious there, is kind of like a ping pong. It reminds me of, literally, a ping pong. And you're not the one that's playing. You're being played. So why not come here, refine your abilities, so that when you leave, you're not getting thrown around everywhere. And the best way to do that is to analyze what you're able to do right now. How is your astral projection gifts right now? How is your lucid dreaming right now? Because that will literally tell, if you are not already already refining your spiritual gifts and astral projecting and stuff like that, like I said, you're in the game of ping pong. Okay. And if you're in the game of ping pong, you're still going to be in the game of ping pong when you leave. If you don't do anything to master Saturn, to master yourself, and this is especially like Saturn and Aries, I have Saturn and Aries. So Saturn and Aries generation is huge about mastery of self. Huge. Okay. And Aries is a fire sign. Fire is the element of spirit. Okay? Aries is the pioneer. This is why I always talk about this type of stuff. No matter what anybody gives me, no matter what, because I know. There's music playing in the background. But, So yeah, you want to understand what is it that I can do right now, because like I said, it's not going to change. When I be looking at my spiritual abilities right now, and I'm like, this is basically how I've been. When you go to bed at night, pay attention to your dreams, write your dreams down if you don't already. Pay attention to the spiritual talents and skills that you are doing in your dreams. Okay. Things that, and pay most attention to, I would say, the things that happen when you're not in a body in your dream. Because sometimes I have dreams where I'm in different forms. So I do pay attention to those, but for this particular, what I'm talking about, you don't want to pay attention to that to learn about what the fuck you get yourself into naturally in the astral realm. You want to pay attention to the dreams that's like third person point of view. Okay? Because that's the most natural for you. That's what you naturally do. That's what you naturally gravitate to. And that is literally, if you don't refine your spiritual journey, that is what's going to happen. Or that's your what is it? That's your playing field. That's your natural playing field. Home base type of energy. And so I wanted to send this message out here because I think it's important for us to know when we talk about the fact that the spirit always exists. I've never heard personally, not saying that nobody has ever said this, but I've never heard personally anybody ever say like, oh, duh, I was literally just saying there's literally spiritual practices about this. So never mind. But I still can say I've never heard anybody actually say it like this. I've read about, about these Eastern practices and Egyptian practices especially. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 1000%. Okay. So I want to put this out there for you guys to know if this is for you. This is also for me. I'm learning just as much. Maybe I'll come back, talk a little bit more about Saturn, talk a little bit more about specific Saturn placements and vampirism, body hijacking and stuff like that. But this channel is mostly astrology based. It's not saying that maybe later on in the future or whenever I'll kind of go into other types of topics. But for the most part, if I can, whatever I'm talking about, I will try to always tie it into astrology, which is also very Saturnian, of course, because this is an astrology based channel. So thank you guys for watching. Bye.